Hey guys, MSC here for the Scan Pro Gaming tab for another video review. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Scan 3XS X99 Carbon Ti, a mid-sized tower gaming PC built into the NZXT H440 featuring the Intel i7 5820K that's been overclocked by the Scan 3XS technicians and extensively tested to be stable at 4.4 GHz. But the star of the show here is that EVGA NVIDIA GeForce GTX 980 Ti superclocked featuring a whopping 6GB of GDDR5 memory, covering you all the way up to 4K resolutions, I'm sure. But with that said, that graphics card does retail at about £600 and the entire system at over 1,900. It's a high-end gaming PC that pretty much guarantees to do everything. But there's some of you out there that might want to make changes during the checkout process. Maybe a 980 instead of the 980 Ti, save yourself £150 to £200. And with that said, I went to EVGA, and because Scan don't charge extra if you do make changes, they only charge at the rate of the components, I said, look, send me everything, a 960 superclocked, a 970 for the win, a 980 superclocked, and of course the 980 Ti superclocked, and I'll give all of you viewers out there a good idea as to which card you should go for and the performance you're likely to get on all of them. So with that said, the focus of this review is going to be on gameplay benchmarks, because let's face it, any i7 for the past 2 generations is going to do very well at pretty much everything, be it streaming to Twitch via OBS or XSplit, video capture using NVIDIA codec, either Shadowplay or MVENC and OBS or XSplit, and we're generally speaking no real difference from 2 generations ago to now. The real difference will come in when it comes to video editing and, you know, the hardcore outside of gaming stuff that some of you might be interested in. And for that, the 5820 and the X99 with DDR4 is definitely the way to go. But I want to help you guys out that are gamers, so we're benchmarking in a way that you can replicate it, compare your system to this, and see whether it's worth spending the money. So it's going to be 1080p benchmarks to coincide with the high refresh rate gaming monitors on the market today. I think if you are going to go for something higher, it should be 1440p, 144 Hz, but we haven't got a monitor on hand to test that. So it is going to be 1080p today, but what we'll do is jump into a quick overview, have a look at those benchmarks, and then final thoughts at the end with a bit of overclocking to the graphics card along the way as well. So yeah, enjoy the video guys, and we'll catch you at the end. So whilst we've been sent the system available on the Scan website to review for the X99 Carbon Ti from Scan 3XS, it's important to point out that Scan do not charge extra if you decide to make changes. They only charge for the component. So if this system is not ideally what you want to go for, you can make the changes during the checkout process. But with that said, we've been sent the i7 5820K overclocked with the help of the Be Quiet Dark Rock Pro 3 cooler from 3.3 to 4.4 GHz. That's extensively tested to be stable, and one of the benefits of going for a pre-built or even just a motherboard bundle is that part's done for you. Now it's housed in an Asus X99A motherboard with 16GB of Corsair Vengeance DDR4 memory at 2666 MHz. We've got a star of the show here, 6GB EVGA GeForce GTX 980 Ti superclocked featuring the ACX 2.0 Plus cooler. Fantastic graphics card retailing at the time of the review of about £600. This is maybe one of the things you'll consider changing, and with that said, we've also been sent from EVGA the 960, 970, 980 and of course the 980 Ti to check out to give you an entire range of options here for the benchmarks. As for storage and hard drives, we've got 512GB Samsung SM951 SSD. It utilizes the PCIe lanes and it's installed into the M2 slot. Very small but has ridiculously fast read and write speeds at 2150 and 1500 megabytes respectively. On that, we've got installed Windows 8.1 64-bit, giving us that free upgrade to Windows 10 on July 29th, and the hard drive, the secondary drive for storage is the 2TB Seagate Barracuda 7200 RPM drive. Always good to have one of those, cheaper per gigabyte and great for storage in games where you don't need to get in as quick as possible. And the entire system is powered by the 750-watt Corsair CS semi-modular 80 plus gold power supply, a PSU of which is more than capable of running 2 980 Ti superclocks in SLI later down the line if you want extra performance. But do bear in mind that the 5820K has 28 lanes as opposed to more, so if you do run SLI, you are going to be running it 8 times rather than at 16 times. FPS hit and change should be minimal, and SLI would far outweigh the disadvantages, but if you want 16 and 16, you are looking toward the 5930 or 5960 or a different chipset that supports it. But the entire system is built into that white glossy mid-sized tower NZXT H440. difficulty. But funnily enough, the one thing that's impressed me more than anything, and I've already done the benchmarks, I'm recording this afterwards, it's the cable management. The 3XS guys from Scan have done a great job here. It looks clean, keeps good airflow, and just better than I could ever do myself in probably a quarter of the time. So yeah, with that said, let's jump into some game benchmarks. So the testing methodology for benchmarking the system was straightforward. I want you guys at home to be able to recreate the same test and see how your system stacks up and whether it's worth your money to upgrade today. So essentially running an in-game resolution of 1080p, maxing everything out except the unnecessary features like motion blur, which we've disabled, and then various levels of anti-aliasing depending on when I think it's needed and the performance hit taken and if it's worth it. And then essentially using fraps in the various segment of games like single player, Crysis 3, or in-game benchmarks like in Grid Autosport, running the fraps benchmark by hitting F11 at the start of the clip and F11 at the end. We're recording the minimum, maximum, and average FPS value. Now our average is taken over 3 benchmarks to give a fair result, but here in Crysis 3 single player using 2TX SMAA, the 980 Ti superclocked in this system scored a minimum of 78, a maximum of 163, and an average of 113.044. Now bringing up the alternative GPU benchmarks, we actually went and overclocked this further manually ourselves using EVGA Precision X. Plus 180 on the GPU, plus 100 on the memory. This is actually quite straightforward and easy to do. Check out any of my other graphics card reviews to do it. But if you're not comfortable, you can pay an extra £30 during the checkout process on the 3XS website, and they'll do it for you. But that increased the minimum to 87, the maximum to 176, and the average to 122.658. Again, utilizing GPU Boost 2.0 to dynamically alter the clock speeds, keeping it within a safe temperature limit. Now, in terms of the 960 results, 38 on the minimum was definitely on the lower end, and 47.819 on average wasn't something I was happy with, so I dropped down all the very high settings to high, and then we got more respectable numbers, 57 minimum, 106 maximum, and an average of 73.028. But all this did for me really was highlight that if you're buying X99, you kind of want to get a minimum of a 970 or a 980 to run everything on very high. Otherwise, you might as well save the money, go for a lower end chipset, an older i7 maybe, and then upgrade rather than buying a 960 to a 970. That FPS increase is actually quite huge, but overall I'm very happy and impressed here with the results, and the 980 Ti, man, 122 on average after that overclock. Great stuff. So moving into our second title, they've also apparently announced a second season pass for this, and having pre-ordered the first with the game, I think I'm going to wait for this one and see how it turns out. But it's the developers or original creators of Left 4 Dead, bringing you this. Turtle Rock Studios, it is Evolve, and running 1TX SMAA and everything else maxed out at very high, scored a minimum on the 980 Ti superclocked in the system of 97, a maximum of 160 and an average of 123.510, and then through our overclock increased that to 102 minimum, maximum of 163 and an average of 125.49. And again, looking at the 960 results, it just confirms my initial thoughts after Crysis 3 that if you're really buying X99, you really want to get a 970 or a 980. Otherwise, just save the money, because even dropping things down to high, the minimum was at 51, the maximum at 84, and the average at 66.872. And whilst the average was definitely playable, I don't want to be dropping below 60. Definitely if I'm spending this amount of money. So if you are buying this, do yourself a favour and make sure you budget for a 970 or a 980. And whilst I will continue to mention the 960 throughout the review because it does perform better in other games, Crysis and Evolve are very demanding on the Crytek engine, it's just something to think about already. But yeah, I mean, look at the 980 Ti superclock again, above 120 even without our further overclock, 123.51. So I mean, what more could you ask for really? Maybe higher minimums, but again, you're looking toward SLI at that point. So very much impressed here with the results here in Evolve. And if you want to repeat the process yourself, simply load up a single player match on the Hunt on Fusion Plant and run the route that I do, hitting the snap jaws when I do with the combination that I do, and you'll be able to do that just fine. But if you want to continue watching, please feel free. If not, click to skip ahead. So moving into our third game from 2013, but still is great today, it is Tomb Raider. And here we're running everything maxed out except depth of field and motion blur, which is disabled, and we're running FXAA for the anti-aliasing. I don't think it's worth using more. FXAA does not introduce a blur in this game, and things look very sharp and crisp. And we scored a minimum of 106, a maximum of 217, and an average of 152.227. Now again, moving into the alternative benchmarks, with our overclock, increase the minimum to 119, almost above 120 at all times, which is absolutely insane. Now again, the 960 was on the lower end, 45. By turning all the ultra settings down one, we increased that to 53, still on the low side, so I decided to disable the hair quality tress FX, which is the individual strands. We get the more blocky hair. Still looks great though in my opinion, increasing the minimum to 88, the maximum to 142, and the average to 114.002. And rather than repeat myself again, similar thoughts from previous benchmarks, I'll just say wow. That 980 Ti though. So moving into our fourth tile, again using the in-game benchmark tool but still running frapped, we've maxed everything out but disabling motion blur and choosing to use FXAA because I don't see a benefit of going higher. Things are still smooth and sharp at 1080p with FXAA, and by increasing it you only get significant performance hit across all cards. But we scored a minimum of 93, a maximum of 185, and an average of 139.386. And then by overclocking we didn't really see any significant improvement to the average FPS, still in the 139 mark, 0.771. The 960 however, definitely within playable frame rates, but again I'm still going back to my original point, but minimum 69, maximum 112, and an average of 94.812. And again the 970 and 980 very close, and minimum on the 970 actually beating out the 980, on par with the 980 Ti before our overclock. Sleeping Dogs in general just seems to perform very well on the NVIDIA graphics cards, and to be honest, 970, 980, 980 Ti, and after our overclock, you're going to be happy on all of them. I mean, from the 970 to 980 Ti superclocked, after our overclock, a difference of 10 FPS on average, that's nothing. So, very impressed here with Sleeping Dogs on all of the cards, and if you want to keep on watching, please feel free. If not, click to skip ahead. So now moving into one of my favourite ever single player first person shooter experiences. It's the Metro series, this one specifically Last Light Redux. And if you've never played them, do yourself a favour and play the original, not the Redux. Yes, you might get better graphics, better lighting, better gunplay and better FPS, but it's too light in my opinion, less immersive. But anyway, with SSAA disabled, a feature I don't think you need here in this game, we scored a minimum of 105, a maximum of 160, and an average of 139.754. Overclocking it, push the minimum to 113, push the maximum to 175, and push the average to 151.914. Definitely worth the £30 spend to have someone do it for you, or to manually learn and do it yourself after you've got the system through Precision X. Now looking at the 960 again, we dropped the settings from very high to high just to give you an idea as what you can expect if you are looking to run the 960 superclocked. Minimum 52, maximum 91, and an average of 77.009. The 970 for the win, and the 980 SC also scored respectable results, but I like to be above 60 as much as possible. The 970 sort of on the cusp there at 66, and to be honest, you're likely to dip below 60 in other aspects of the game. So I definitely say if you are buying this game to max it out on this system at 1080p, you're really looking at the 980 superclocked to be safe. Not sorry. But if you want to keep on watching, please feel free. If not, skip ahead. So for a penultimate title, it really had to be a racing game, and what better than the one from Codemasters, Grid Autosport. And just imagine the feeling you'll get setting absolutely everything to maximum, all those settings on the right hand side to ultra as far as they'll go with 4 times MSAA. You're going to be getting a minimum of 112, a maximum of 186, and an average of 140.499. Really great results here from the 980 Ti superclock in the system, and then overclocking it pushes it a little bit further, minimum of 114, a maximum of 189, and an average of 144.229. Now you're still going to be able to play on the 960 superclock. Again, minimum below 60 there, 58. Again, not trying to repeat myself from earlier on, but anything above a 970, you're going to have a great time with it. And to be honest, even though I think anything above 60 is more than satisfactory for a racer, and this game is going to run great on triple widescreen monitors and all that kind of jazz too, I think I'd drop a couple of those settings down just to stay above 120 at minimum across all 4 of those benchmarks, excluding the 960 at all times, because why the hell not? You might as well if you can. But overall, very impressed here. I mean, the 980 Ti, it may cost £200 more than the 980 superclock, but wow, what a beast that card really is. Anyway, for our final game, it's going to be Grand Theft Auto 5. Go ahead and keep watching or click to skip ahead. So moving into our final game, it had to of course be Rockstar's Grand Theft Auto 5. Now all the settings are on the right hand side. Some of the ultra settings have been set to very high there, for example grass quality, simply because I don't see a difference going to ultra, and the performance hit you take isn't really worth it, and I want to use 4 times MSAA if I can. But point is, you can dip down more of those settings and get huge performance increases, including removing MSAA and putting FXAA on. But we scored a minimum of 58, a maximum of 125, and an average of 90.060. Overclocking it increased the minimum to 63, the maximum to 134, and the average to 97.888. Now looking at the 960 superclock, you can see there the minimum of 12 is really low, and again you got to remember that that card is a 2GB card, and that the settings we are using is around 3180 megabyte. That is way above what the 960 superclock has at 2 gig. So by dropping down some of those settings, removing very high to high and removing 4 times MSAA in favor of FXAA, increase the minimum to 62, the maximum to 123, and the average to 89.756. But it does highlight an important point here with GTA 5, is that memory limit could actually come into play depending on the setup you're using. 2GB, quite frankly, in 2015 for a high-end gaming PC is just too little, too low. You're really looking at 3.5 at a minimum, which is what you get on the 970, plus the 0.5 on top of that if it's needed, bumping it to 4 gig. And obviously 980 you get the full 4 gig, and on the 980 Ti you get the 6 gig. But even with the 970 for the win, 36 were definitely on the lower end, so I would consider dipping down some of the settings further on all cards, actually excluding the 980 Ti, just to stay close to 60 minimum at all times. So final thoughts then for the Scan 3XS X99 Carbon Ti. Well, a monster system, no doubt about it. And to be honest, like I said in the overview initially, just on receiving the system, it pretty much convinced me that next time I upgrade, I'm just going to buy a pre-built on-order system from Scan 3XS. Now, what some of you will know, having watched my graphics card reviews, is that my system, the the Intel i7-3770K clocked at 4.5 in an Asus Z77 Sabertooth was actually a pre-built motherboard bundle. So I basically bought it from Scan before I even did any of the videos on any of our two channels, and it came shipped in a cardboard box, anti-static bubble wrapping, like what you get in the full tower system, but I simply bought my full tower separately, installed everything into it, and then cable managed it myself. And whilst it does look good and it's worked great and it's not failed me in over 2 years now, I think next time I'm just going to save myself even more hassle and just get an entire pre-built, because the workmanship and just the appearance and just overall build quality of this system is just second to none. It really is outstanding, and I can't commend the Scan 3XS guys enough on the build of this system. And not only that, but the little additional benefits you get, like the little USB on there that comes with all your different applications that you can use to either wipe your SSD or hard drive or whatever. It's just, it feels like they've thought of everything with the system. And not only that, but if anything goes wrong, you've got your warranty there. By default, your 1 year return to base and then 2 year part and label, or you can obviously pay a little bit more to get more years and so on and so forth. So and then you look at the performance of the system as well. It's just an absolute monster, particularly with the 980 Ti. Now, looking at the benchmark results, the 960 superclock, like I initially said, I'd rather you save the money, go for an early generation i7, maybe a 4790K, in favour of getting a 970, 980 instead of a 960 if you're budgeting for a 960, because the FPS increase you get from a graphics card would far outweigh any benefit you get from upgrading your CPU. I mean, if you look at my 3770 build at 4.5 and you look at the 5820 at 4.4, when it comes to gaming, there's not a whole lot of difference in the FPS number if you put the same graphics card in both systems. The difference really comes from the graphics card model. And so for me as well, upgrading right now from my system to this, not really going to happen. 2016 I think is when I'm going to upgrade, when the new Star Wars Battlefront drops, Overwatch and all the other new games like Fallout 4 come out. I don't feel like I need to upgrade yet from my 3770, but if you've got something older than that, I think this is a generation that is definitely worthy of an upgrade. I mean, DDR4 is ridiculously fast. You look at that little tiny SSD thing, that alone makes me want to upgrade. My motherboard doesn't have support for that or space for that. I'd have to get a full PCIe slot SSD, and to be honest, I don't really have the space in my system with a sound card and a capture card. So as we move forward, the space saving options you're getting in these motherboards are just ridiculously insane. And the speed, I mean, 2000 plus read speed, 1500 write speed, it's just crazy. I guess the only thing you can really hope for is more space than 512. But for me, I wouldn't even go for the 512 that's pre-installed. I drop down to the 128 or the 256. Yes, you lose a little bit of write speed, maybe down to 1000 or thereabouts. But generally speaking, it's going to be my OS drive. Anything for recording, I just install some secondary SSDs. And again, you've got 2 spaces above the power supply cover if you want to install your own SSDs. And not only that, but you could even just tell Scan to route a couple of additional SATA cables because you're planning to upgrade there in the future. I mean, they already routed an additional one above the Seagate drive for storage if I was to install another one there. Now, in terms of disadvantages with this system, the only real one that I can think of is that there is no optical bays. So if you have a DVD or you need a DVD, you're going to need to get an external one, or obviously take off the back cover every time you want to use it, which is obviously a no-go for a lot of people. I don't think it's an issue. The only time I use the CD is to install Windows, and now looking at Windows 10 and even Windows 8.1, you can just download onto USB and just install from that, and it's so much faster off USB as well, believe me. So if you can avoid an optical bay, just do it. It's much cleaner build and it just looked great, and looking great is just what this system does best, from cable management to just the overall white glossy finish of the case. The only thing I'd perhaps consider doing is maybe during the checkout process get some individually sleeved PSU cables. It'll look a little bit nicer going into the graphics card, or maybe some LEDs as well, rather than just the white at the back by the USB ports and stuff like that. But I mean, overall, a huge fan of this system. If you can fork out for the 980 Ti, definitely do. It's a monster. And shout out to the EVGA for sending out the full range. I hope you guys appreciate it. And if you do end up buying one of the cards from this review, please let me know below. I'd love to be able to go back to EVGA and say, look, you guys have been helped by this video, and that obviously makes me feel good as well that I've helped some of you out. So I hope you've appreciated the format, and you guys go and test your systems again and let me know if your system beats out this system. I'd really interested to know if that's even possible. at the same clock speeds with the same cards and so on and so forth. But yeah, I've been MVC here for the Scan Pro Gaming Tab. Shout outs to Scan for shipping out the system. And if you want to check it out, scan.co.uk, head up the 3XS system page. And if this specific model of system, the 3XS X99 Carbon TI, doesn't fit your fancy, there's a whole range of others available depending on the budget you've got to spend. Or just give the guys a call. I'm sure they'll be more than happy to talk you through all of your different options over the phone. But yeah, I've been MVC. Have a nice day, everyone, and we'll catch you next time. Take care.